Hi friends, I hope you're all well. Today I am celebrating hitting 500 subscribers on YouTube. I'm absolutely delighted that you all enjoy watching my videos. I have such a fun time making them, and it's so nice to kind of share a bit of my reading and my sort of life in Iceland with you. I thought I would celebrate the occasion by answering some questions and kind of having a Q&A, and you can get to know me a little bit better. If you're totally new around here, my name is Katie. I am 27 years old. I'm originally from Scotland, but I moved to Iceland with my partner about 2 years ago now, just coming up to 2 years. So hopefully during this video you will get to know me a bit better when I answer some of these questions. Got quite a lot of questions about life in Iceland, a few questions about Scotland, and quite a few questions about bookish stuff, and then just some miscellaneous, some of them fun, some of them just kind of don't fit in those other two categories kind of questions. So quite a lot to get going with, and hopefully we will have a good natter. Grab yourself a cup of tea if you haven't got one, or a coffee or water, whatever your beverage is of choice. I have a cup of tea today and I'm looking forward to having a good wee natter with you. The first question is, tell me anything at all about Iceland. Now there is loads of things I could say to this, and probably you'll get a wee feel of more stuff about Iceland as I go through some of the other questions. But to start off, if you don't know Iceland at all, Iceland has a population of 350,000 people, and I think about 220,000 of those are in the city of Reykjavik, in the larger capital region, and that's where I live. I live in the capital of Iceland, in Reykjavik. The second question, what made you move to Iceland? So me and my partner are both British, and we moved here basically for economic reasons, for work, and for a chance of adventure and to experience something totally new. Somebody said, do you speak Icelandic when at home? No, we don't, because we're both British, so we speak English. Somebody else asked, does everyone in Iceland speak English? Yes, they do, pretty much anyway. The vast majority of people do speak English. A couple of people asked, what are your favourite and least favourite things about living in Iceland? So my favourite thing has to be the pace of life. It is such a much slower pace of life. Things just happen at a slower pace, people move at a slower pace. It's hard to describe without actually being here, but it's just such a more relaxed way of living than what I'm used to in the UK. And my least favourite thing is probably quite frivolous, and that is that it's very expensive to import products, and so and it's very expensive also to buy products here, so it is quite difficult sometimes if there's something in particular you really like the look of, or someone talks a lot about something, you think, I really want that. It's something that, you have to really be good with delayed gratification, because things can take sort of 4-6 weeks even to get to you, and it can cost a lot more than what I'm certainly used to paying. So that's probably my least favourite thing. Somebody else asked, what's your favourite and least favourite things about living abroad in general? And I answer this separately because I have lived abroad in Belgium previously, and I think it's a wider question, I guess. So my favourite thing about living abroad is experiencing other cultures, other places, and kind of getting a bit more immersed than you do when you travel somewhere. I find that really interesting and fun, and I really enjoy it. My least favourite thing is probably that same thing, the culture shock can be really difficult, and also I think when you return back to your home country, reverse culture shock is seriously real and it's difficult to cope with. Somebody else asked, what are your experiences with Icelandic women? And they said that their experiences in a work context were that they found Icelandic women formidable, was the word that they used. I would say that my experience with Icelandic women is quite limited to work settings or, meetings in general, public life. And I don't have any strong feelings about Icelandic women particularly. I would say that in general, Icelandic culture is quite standoffish, and I guess in Scotland we're I'm kind of used to that, because people are quite like that in Scotland. They will be a lot more initially friendly with you than I find Icelandic people are, but then it's really hard to get into circles of Scottish people, and I think it's the same here. They just have bonds that they've had for most of their life, from childhood, etc., and it's really hard to get into that, and that's fair enough. That's just what their culture is, but I guess that could make somebody seem formidable, and for me, I don't see a gender difference there. that's, I suppose, my feelings on that question. Somebody said that they read somewhere that Iceland only got vanilla ice cream, only had vanilla ice cream up until 3 years ago, which is such a funny thing. Do you know what? This reminds me of like Would I Lie to You, the TV show, where you've got to try and work out whether or not somebody is telling you the truth in a statement. And this is the kind of thing which is believable, because it can take Iceland, like products take longer to get to Iceland, and so things that I'm used to seeing in the UK maybe take 2 or 3 years to appear here. But I don't think this is true. I haven't seen anything, I can't find anything about this online being true. And actually, Icelanders love ice cream. So there's this thing in Iceland called an ice cream drive, which a lot of young people go on, which is essentially where they drive to an ice cream place. There's a lot of places to get ice cream here. And then they will take a drive with the ice cream and go and sit somewhere nice and scenic and just enjoy that moment with their friends or whatever. And you see this no matter what the weather is, Icelanders will eat ice cream. So I would be very, very surprised if vanilla ice cream had only come here, or if several different flavours had only come here 3 years ago. But if someone knows differently, let me know in the comments below, because that would be really interesting to know about. Somebody asked, how do Iceland and Scotland compare? And I would say they are in a lot of ways quite similar. Culturally, they are quite similar. Initially, I didn't have much culture shock apart from the language, and sort of feeling excluded from certain circles because my Icelandic was very poor, and initially non-existent. I only really knew how to say hello and thank you when I first moved here, and I have learned phrases through living here and things like that. But my Icelandic is still very basic. I probably speak like a toddler. I don't really know, but I probably speak like a toddler. Scotland and Iceland also have like really strong nature, as in like their nature is so beautiful, and I would say that Iceland is a bit more like a New Zealand kind of landscape, and I would refer to it more as like Scotland on steroids kind of thing. The same kind of language that's used about New Zealand I would use for Iceland, because it is just like completely breathtaking. And the first few times we came here, it was just like, it totally blows your mind how amazing these kind of landscapes are. Somebody asked, where in Scotland are you from? I'm actually from Perth, which is a small town. There's about 50,000 people that live there, and it's in the central belt of Scotland. It's known as like the gateway to the Highlands, because once you pass through Perth, you're almost heading directly to the Highlands. It's like one straight road up the way. Most of my family is from like the west coast of Scotland, so Glasgow, Lanarkshire, Ayrshire, and I have lived in both Aberdeen and Edinburgh for significant periods of time, so I've had quite a good experience of like all of Scotland, I guess. What's your favourite dish from your hometown? Now, I don't know if Perth actually has like a certain dish that they do. I would say in general, if you haven't tried haggis, you've got to try haggis at some point. Don't look up what is in haggis, just try it, because if you don't think about it and you just taste it, you might like it. There's also veggie haggis available, but it is an animal-based product if you are vegetarian or vegan or anything like that. Pre-lockdown, how often did you travel? Oh, we travel quite a lot. I really like travelling, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do so. I've done like interrailing trips with friends, and I've done like trips with family overseas. I spent 6 weeks in Australia and New Zealand, and just I really enjoy travelling new places and experiencing new things. In terms of how often I travelled, I probably travelled once or twice a year outside of the UK. Somebody asked, if you were going to move to a totally new place, where would you go? I've always wanted to live in Australia, and my partner's kind of put off by the spiders there, but can be, he's laughing just now, but is sort of more convinced by the idea of New Zealand. So let's see, that might be something that we do at some point in our lives. Okay, and to segue from travel into books, somebody's asked if I have read The Glass Woman by Caroline Lee. I actually have this on my Kindle, and my partner's read it, but I haven't yet. But we have been to the town of Sticklesholmer, where this is set, and the book is all set. So I'll put some clips on the screen of, you know, the town, and you can kind of get an image of it. But it's a really sweet place. It's one of my favourite places in Iceland. I think it's a lovely little town, and yeah, I would definitely recommend it if you ever find yourself in Iceland to go there. There's a beautiful restaurant there, which does some really nice fish food, so Yeah. Okay, and now to the questions about reading. So somebody asked, have you always enjoyed reading? I would say no is probably the answer to that. I have memories of going to the library as a child, a small child, and I think I liked reading, but I wouldn't have said that I read a lot. And I only really got into reading around about the age of 10 when my teacher at the time said to me that if I wanted my grades to improve in English, I had to read outside of Jacqueline Wilson, who was the only author I read at the time. And so me and my mum went on a mission to kind of read more books, and she took me to bookstores and things like that to be able to pick up some books, and I used to go and visit the library a lot more. And I got really into reading at that point in my life. And then when I joined university, I found that I was reading so much non-fiction and so much heavy literature that I didn't want to read for pleasure outside of that, and so I kind of dropped off reading at that point and only really rediscovered my love for reading when I joined Bookstagram about 2.5 years ago. So I've been kind of getting back into it a lot more, and I think Bookstagram's a real big part of that for me, which I think has been really nice and positive. Somebody asked what was your favourite book as a child. I don't really know if I had one. I have memories of reading certain titles like The Tiger Who Came to Tea, but I don't have memories of if I had a particular favourite book. Somebody asked what was the book that first got you into reading. I think there's probably quite a few books that I could mention here. Most notably, I remember reading Louise Rennison's Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging series, and Mallory Blackman's Noughts and Crosses. I also loved Adeline Yanma's Chinese Cinderella, which is a non-fiction book. And I remember liking an author called Scott Westerfield, who writes like dystopian kind of novels. So I had quite a wide range of fiction that I was reading when I was young, but yeah, I would say those were the books that got me into it. Somebody asked what book character you see yourself as, and I honestly don't have an answer for this. I don't really ever think of myself in that way or think of characters in that way. Yeah, it's an interesting question, but I'm afraid I don't have an answer. Somebody asked who's your least favourite author, and I would probably say J.K. Rowling, because they have an absolutely huge platform and they've decided to use it to tear down trans people, and I just think that's absolutely disgusting behaviour. Somebody asked what's my favourite time in the day to read, and that would be probably morning if I had my way. I love reading in the morning, but I often find that I read at night because it's when I have free time. Somebody asked what's my favourite genre to read. I don't really know. I read a lot of different genres, and I'm a real mood reader, so I'll read lots of different things at different times. I would say I most often read literary fiction, but I will read honestly anything. And what's my favourite read of the year so far? That would be My Name is Leon by Kit de Waal. I really like this title. Somebody asked how, when and why I started my Bookstagram account. So if you don't know, I have been part of the Bookstagram or Book Instagram community for about 2.5 years now. That's kind of where my journey with the online book community started, and it kind of began just as a diary for myself. I didn't realise that Bookstagram existed. I didn't realise there was an online bookish community of any sort. And I just wanted to track my reading for myself. So I started this little account, and I was going to just share like, oh, this is what I'm currently reading. I was going to share like brief thoughts about them. And then people were following me, and I was going on their profiles, and I was thinking, this is actually a community of people. Like, all these people have accounts which they're talking about books on. And so I was quite surprised by that, but I really liked sort of getting involved with that community, and yeah, I guess here we are 2.5 years later. And if you don't know, I have a bullet journal where I sort of journal about the books I'm reading and create spreads to kind of track them and things like that. It's a lot of fun, something I really enjoy. Somebody asks if I like crayons and if I ever use them in my book journal. I do like crayons. I used to use them when I studied art in school, but they are quite messy, and so I don't use them in my journal. I actually don't have any here in Iceland. But they are super fun like media to use to create art. And 2 questions that are linked. The first person says, do you have a tune that always gets you on the floor? And that is a Ceilidh tune, of course, because all Scots have their fave. And then somebody else asked, do you like dancing? So I will say that I don't really like dancing. I'm not a big dancer. I will dance with my partner. I really like dancing with my partner. That being said, if I hear a Ceilidh sound, and there is a Ceilidh happening, which is a form of dancing. If you don't know, it's a Scottish event where people dance to Scottish music, and it's usually kind of routine based, so people understand like what the next step in the dance is. I'm not sure that I have a favourite Ceilidh song, but I love the group dances. I find the sort of one-on-one Ceilidh dances can be a bit intense, especially if you have come to a party without your partner. But I really like the group dances at Ceilidh, and I think that's why I really enjoy Ceilidh's, is like the kind of feeling of community and people coming together and dancing and sharing a moment. Next question is cats or dogs, and I like both actually. But if I was to have a pet, I'd probably have a pet dog. Two food related questions. First one, do I have a favourite candy? Probably anything with chocolate in it. I absolutely love chocolate. And the second one is, what's your ideal 3-course meal? This is a tough one because I will eat anything. I'm a very unfussy eater and I really like trying all kinds of different food. I would say that when I go out for dinner, I really like either having a really nice piece of fish or a like nice piece of meat. So let's say starter, some kind of smoked salmon dish, main course, some kind of steak, and a dessert, maybe a chocolatey dessert. Somebody asked about films and do I have any favourite films? I am the kind of person who will re-watch a film over and over and over again. I get a lot of comfort from that. And so as a child, I used to over and over again re-watch Pocahontas. That was like my favourite ever film, and if I can find it I will put an image of me in my Pocahontas memorabilia because I had loads of Pocahontas things. I absolutely adored Pocahontas when I was a child. And then as a teen I was really into A Cinderella Story, which is like a chick flick, and I also really liked animated films, so like The Incredibles was one of my favourites to watch. My partner's really into films and likes to watch like different kinds of films a lot, so I do that kind of rewatching of films less often now. Some recent films that I really liked, Black Box was really good. I watched that at the start of this year. And two of my favourite like animated films at the moment are probably Inside Out and Soul. I just love like the conversations about like mental health and like our mind and things like that. So those are ones that I have watched a couple of times that I really, really like. Somebody asked, what did you study at uni? So I initially went to uni to do communication with public relations, and then like had what's called like a false start. So I dropped out after a year of that, and I went on to do politics and my undergraduate, and then I followed that on with a master's in criminology and criminal justice. A couple of people asked, what's your new job and how are you enjoying it? So if you don't know, I actually lost my job during the coronavirus pandemic, like a lot of people, and then sort of freelanced for quite a while, and then was still searching for a job, and so eventually got this new job that I've just recently started at the start of this year, which is really, really exciting, and I'm really liking it. There's really nice people and it's a good kind of vibe, so yeah, happy days. Somebody else asked, do you have a in another life I would have loved to be type job? And this is not maybe in another life, this is just kind of like if this job existed I would love to do it, and that is essentially I would love to work in criminal justice policy for the government, so like actually making change to policy, and I have learned that to do that you have to actually be a politician, which I don't really want to be, so I think that job is off the cards, but if I could do that without being a politician, like to be working for the government in some way, shaping criminal justice policy, I would absolutely love that job. Somebody else asked, do you have a favourite Scottish word, phrase, expression? And I have so many. I absolutely love Scots language. Two that kind of come to mind, I guess, would be dreich, because there is no other word for this in English. It's a particular type of weather where it's like very overcast, rainy, like you just want to be inside and like warm and everything like that, and that would be a dreich day. And I guess part of it being dreich is like it goes on for a while, and so yeah, you get a lot of them in Scotland. If you don't know, Scotland gets so much rain, more so even than Iceland. And another word that I really like, which is relevant to this conversation I guess, is blether. And so there's kind of two ways you can use this. You can have a cuppa and a blether like we've just had, or you can say they're a blether, which means they're talking nonsense, or like they talk a lot of nonsense. So it's a fun word to use and I really like it, and I guess I've heard it a lot growing up. My parents use those words a lot. Other words I really like wee, like small or little, just a wee bit of milk or something like that. Yeah, there are so many. I just love reading stuff in Scots as well. I do read some Scots language books, and I just absolutely adore hearing Scots language. So yeah, so many phrases I could say and talk about. But I think that'll be all, so you don't think that I'm blethering on. And so with all that being said, I hope you've had a wee chance to kind of get to know me a bit more and kind of learn a wee bit more about me. If you have any other questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to drop comments below. And yeah, it's been nice to blather to you and to kind of have a nice chat. And I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye for now.